Hey up there, it's me, your crotch. My living conditions down here are deplorable. The itch and burn are too much. Scrub me with medicated Fungi Cure Wash when you shower and say hasta la vista to jock itch. Get Fungi Cure Wash at Walmart and Rite Aid. Do it now!
Blog Talk Radio.
Well, hello, fans and listeners and all the good people in the entire world. I'm here, there, and everywhere. This is little old me broadcasting on a Friday, and it's also my very last show, which I'm very excited about because if you follow my page, you already know. It's been quite the week, and I'm very happy to be ending it, but I'm ending it off with such a wonderful guest that I'm so excited to be hosting. Jack O'Halloran will be joining us very shortly. As a matter of fact, I just want to make a very, very quick announcement or two. First off, I want to remind everyone in the New York City area, I was just brought abreast of this. The Louise Legacy 5th Annual Blue Gala is going on this evening, 7 o'clock, located at 26 Broadway Street. Louise Legacy is Louies legacy.org. Apparently this has everything to do with animal rescue, and I'm a huge proponent for that. Again, 26 Broadway Street, 7 o'clock, Louise's Legacy, and it's going to be honoring both Marvel actor as well as, of course, Sons of Anarchy alumni Theo Rossi, as well as Huffington Post contributor Aaron Greenwood. Okay, so that takes care of the business at hand. Obviously, I'll put a post up about Leah, which is the AMA, or I think the UFC fighter that's going to be, I think she's going to be showing sometime today or having an event today. Look for my Facebook page or my Sins Chat Corner page to be able to check that out. So before we start our interviews, let me just say to everybody one more time, even though I put that on the page, thank you so much for your thoughts and your prayers and your texts and your emails and your calls. I'm not dead. I'm fine. I'm just very unhappy, and my family has a situation that we just need to deal with. So I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate your respecting my privacy. I will reach out when I'm ready. I'm just nowhere near ready. So I appreciate your thoughts. So without further ado, when I want to leave the big man on hold, let's go speak to Jack O'Halloran. Very, very excited. Hi, Jack.
How are you? Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Well, it's afternoon in my neck of the woods. I know it's like late morning for you because you're LA time, or you're in California, so you're 2 hours behind me. So good morning / afternoon. I'm excited, and I'm very nervous, and I have a lot of ground to cover with you. Okay. And I know a lot more about you now. Why don't we start off? I want to start off with the most obvious, which is most people may or may not know that you were born in Philadelphia and you eventually moved to New Jersey. I myself am a New York City brat on and off and eventually will be moving there. So talk to me a little bit about some people that I've met from Philly are very straightforward, very straight shooting. Then you move to New Jersey, and that's a whole different kind of crowd. Talk to me a little bit about growing up as a Philly kid and your experience. And were you boxing as a small child? Because I can envision this right from the get-go.
Just in the street.
Really? Well, at that age, of course.
Yeah. No, I never. I learned how to fight at a very early age, and to take care of myself and all that stuff. And but I never got into boxing until I was 23 years old, 22 years old. I was playing football, and I left football and went into boxing. So the first thing I did, and when I was a young kid at the PAL League and stuff like that, we played around with boxing. But I had a minder around me that taught me how to box and taught me judo and a lot of other things.
Neat.
When I was raised up. Yeah, it was kind of cool.
Well, definitely, without a doubt, actually. And I actually was creeping on both your page and your Twitter, and I noticed that you were a continual, constant supporter of both the NBA and the NFL, or in particular, I should say, Tom Brady. So I want to ask you a question as a football expert, I guess I would call you, somebody who has that much interest in it, certainly knows a bit about the game. So I want to pick your brain a little bit. I'm going to be interviewing an expert on football, actually, in the next couple of weeks. So I want you to talk a little bit about, just in general, your thoughts on well, you know, it's been said that football is a dangerous sport. Obviously, we all know this, et cetera. One of the experts I'm interviewing is actually the guy that did the movie Concussion, which talks about CTE and football and such. And talk to me a little bit about your views on the game itself and how it's kind of matured, or should I say changed throughout the years. And more importantly,
I mean, when I played ball, you know, when I was in high school, you played, you never left the field. You know, only for halftime and the end of the game, unless you had an injury. You played both ways, and you played, and that was right up through college. And the pros, there's only a few people that still played both ways. Chuck Bednarik for the Eagles, and a couple other people. And the game has changed tremendously. I think that in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, the players were tougher. They maybe not have been as big and as fast, although some of them were pretty quick. But there's a lot different training techniques and stuff today. I think that they've put so many precautions and so many things in the rules in the game that they've actually hurt it. Their TV audience is falling off. There's too many timeouts. There's too many interruptions in the game. There's too many rules that they put that take away from the actual physicality of the game, which interferes with the ongoing play and momentum of the game. And momentum's a big deal in football. I think that ball players today they're bigger and faster to a degree, but they also train in a way that they injure themselves more. I think the concussion thing, they actually have better helmets and better equipment and stuff like that. And when I played, the single bar was just going out. They didn't have the face mask they have today. They didn't have the helmets they had. I mean, we probably had a lot of concussions in those days that no one ever thought about, and no one ever talked about. So I played two sports that actually had a lot of percussion deals like that in football and boxing. So
of course.
I liked the game better 10, 15 years ago, football. I really think that they've slowed it down. I think that there's the things that they've done to it, the interjections of different things have hobbled it, so to speak,
Sure. No, I understand.
Too much interference with certain things, and what happened to Tom Brady was appalling. I mean, it was totally politics, and they can't stand to see. For some reason, the media hates to see a winner.
I know.
And that's in any sport. That's baseball. I mean, that goes back to Hank Aaron. It goes back to pitchers who won 30 games and stuff. They always want to dig up some kind of dirt. They can't stand to see it when someone is, succeeds. Okay.
Right. Gotcha.
And you can go all the way back to probably one of the greatest athletes in American history was Jim Thorpe. And what they did to that poor man, was diabolical. When the guy was probably the greatest athlete that was ever born in America. And for a $50 bill one summer, when someone, talked him into, instead of hitching hay in his college year in the summertime, come play baseball, we'll give you $50, and then turned around and said he was a professional and took all of his Olympic medals away.
Oh, my God.
And degraded him something terrible. And he was, and the Thorpe story is an amazing story. And they made a movie out of Burt Lancaster.
Right.
The guy was just a tremendous athlete. So through history, people, every time they seem to succeed, Pete Rose and, with his gaming supposedly, and every time someone got to a stardom deal, somebody wants to tear it down. Brady is probably the most cleanest living guy I've ever met that plays sports.
Right.
Tom is an incredibly gifted athlete, a very clean living guy. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. He's a healthy guy, and for 39, he's still playing like he's in his 20s because of his eating habits and everything else. He's never partaken in any kind of leisure casual drug intake or drinking intake or anything of that nature. And he doesn't get into any mischief off the field. There's never anything bad ever said about him off the field. And for them to turn around and pull this deflating stuff, and it started with the Patriots with them supposedly doing recordings of practices and stuff like that, which they all do. They're not the only team that ever did that. I mean, they did that when I played ball. You know, of free scouting people and stuff. So they take things so out of context because some team is an organization, and the Patriot organization is a great organization, but they built that. I mean, when I was playing ball, the Patriots were so bad. They were still playing on the high schools. They were still playing on a high school field. The best player they had was Larry Eisenhower, who was a great guy, and poor Bledsoe. I mean, the quarterback Jim. He came from he didn't become a star until he went to Oakland. And guys got beat up when they went to Boston, and then they turned the whole franchise around, and they've made a dynamic franchise out of it, and they get better and better, and they have a great coach in Belichick, and he's a great gifted guy at choosing talent and shifting talent around, and they don't have it's just like he's almost like a Lombardi type of guy. When Lombardi was coaching, he had less injuries and stuff because of the way that he trained his athletes. The Green Bay Packers were against weights and stuff like that, and these kids today are training in mechanisms that I believe, as an athlete, are not healthy. They, to squat with 600 pounds and stuff like that, you hyperextend all your joints, your ankles, your knees, your hips, so that when they're running at such speed now and on artificial turf and stuff, when they go to cut, their ankles give out or their knees give out. So you have a lot more injuries in football today than you ever did before, and they just don't seem to have the same stamina that ball players had years ago. I call them, like 30-second wonders. They can sprint for 50 yards and then they're huffing and puffing. Right. So you don't have the durability of the Johnny Unitas and stuff. I mean, I remember Johnny Unitas when he was playing with Baltimore. He got his front teeth knocked out one time, and he wouldn't come off the field. He just reached down and grabbed a handful of side and shoved it up in the holes in his mouth to stop the bleeding so he could finish the set of plays.
Oh, my God.
And, they were tougher people. They just, it was a whole different type of love of the game, I think you would say, You didn't have as many crybabies. You didn't have as many off-the-field antics as you have today.
Got it.
And I think that's sad. And they give these kids so much money that I think they ruin a lot of people by doing that, to be honest with you. If you want to pay them that kind of money, put it in a trust. Don't let them, get crazy spending this, spending that. Most ball players are broke after 5 years.
Oh, I imagine. Definitely.
Which is sad
now,
because they're set upon by people. People actually. So
the one question, no, that's okay. The one question that I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about is because you have been in two very, very strongly physical activities, as you mentioned, the boxing and the football. So what sort of after effects were you left with to deal with in terms of physically or mentally? Because some people have said, it's both a mental and a physical sport.
When I was younger, and I didn't realize it until I was into my career as a fighter, I had a disease called acromegalia, which is a tumor of the pituitary gland, which I shouldn't have ever been fighting at all.
Oh, my God.
It causes acromegalia is a weird disease because it's one of the rarest diseases out there, and it causes gigantism in males, and it's more prevalent in females actually than it is in males. In women, they're like short and they're squatty and they're square and they sweat and they're puffy and the facial features change, and it's because what it does is it affects your pituitary gland, so it affects all the hormones that go into your body. Okay. And as a male, I know in my case, where I'm supposed to be putting out 10% growth hormone, I was putting out 120% growth hormone. So it saps your body, and it puts you into different states of mind and stuff like that. And I never realized, I never found it out until it was amazing. I went out to fight Kenny Norton in San Diego, and they sent some publicity pictures of me a couple years old, And the doctor out there, who was the medical doctor for the sport, was a very, very sharp, regular doctor. And I walked in to get a physical, and he looked at me and he said, kid, you're an acromegalic. And I said, yeah, great. Can I fight? And he said, yeah, but it's something you should look after. And then when I had a great fight against Norton and stayed in San Diego and won the California heavyweight title and all, he and I became very good friends. And he said to me, here's the deal. Either you go to Scripps and get a workup, or I'm pulling your boxing license because I think it'll kill you. And we're friends, and I don't want to see that happen to you. So I did, and I found out that I had this unbelievable disease. But I was very lucky. In 1974, I went to Mass General, and I had it zapped out. I was fortunate to be. They had a thing called an cyclotron proton machine in Mass General, and it's like a laser, but it doesn't burn. It just causes an inner explosion of the tumor, and I was one of 1,000 that the first time out, it bam, and knocked it out. But the remnants of it were there. So it's one of those things that you just go through, and medically, people should have stopped me from fighting.
Right.
And a lot of things were passed through in those days. They didn't grab a lot of things like concussions and all the other stuff. And guys got concussions all the time. I mean, you're talking about guys 250 pounds slamming into each other all the time. Or in boxing, it's even more prevalent because you're getting headshots all the time that are direct blows to the head. So you just turn around and you say to yourself, all the older ball players who didn't cry about it, and some of them wound up punchy, like what they call Palookaville for fighters. Yeah. That happened to other athletes that no one ever talked about it. They use it as a form of dementia or something, But it was from head trauma. It's been going on in sports and basketball the same way. There's any contact sport that you do, you can suffer head trauma from.
Gotcha.
Hockey,
of course.
Hockey. These guys they're banging people around like crazy maniacs.
God, that's insane. Now, with this condition that you had, is it hereditary? So meaning that would your child have any involved with this?
They had no idea where it comes from. It's probably one of the most rarest diseases that there is. And no one can figure out how it comes about or where it comes from. I believe in my own case, when I go back over the history of my medical deal all the way back, they told me I had rheumatic fever, and I think it was more acromegalia, because the symptoms of sweating and all this stuff was all involved in that, But they said, he's got rheumatic fever. And doctors in those days never really looked, they didn't know. You had symptoms, but the symptoms could be like for 4 different things. So there was no specialist that pinpointed things in those days.
You betcha. And of course, you stand at 6'6". So of course, I guess I'm just wondering, because you were so tall, was that any kind of an indicator or sign? Did it seem unnatural to you?
You hit it right on the head. Yeah. See, like myself, my personal self, I probably should have only been about 6'2", 6'1".
Okay.
And I'm 6'6", and my skeleton, weighs 50 pounds more than it should because of the thickness of the bones.
Okay, got it.
And I've had 3 back operations because of the vertebrae. My vertebrae are twice the size. I've had a lot of different sports and things, and caused a lot of damage for disc and all that stuff. So I've had 3 surgeries on my back and a lot of other joints in my body and stuff because of it. The rheumatoid arthritis I have through my whole body is atrocious because of it. But you adjust and you learn how to exercise things out.
Of course. Sure. And of course you're forced to shop at the big and tall, or do they have to actually physically? I know it sounds silly, but do you have to have your clothes made because you're much taller and such? Because that's got to be difficult.
Well, you can buy stuff off the stuff. I did have a lot of stuff made because I was just in a position to be able to do that. Thank God.
Sure. But, thank goodness for that.
Yeah. but
Okay.
it makes it a lot easier.
Oh, you betcha. Now, I have to tell your listening audience, because, of course, to most of you who have never met or never spoke to Jack before, the first thing you look at is, of course, his actual picture when you see him online, etc. And believe it or not, he is actually a father and a grandfather, and he's been married once. And I have to say that I saw your beautiful Aspen on your Facebook page the other day, and I have to say, oh, my God, precious, beautiful, gorgeous. You are very blessed, as you might have mentioned. Yes. Now, my question...
Yeah.
Now, I gather now are your daughter or your grandchild, are they involved in getting into the industry themselves, or are they just more or less kind of like this is Dad's thing and this is just Dad or Grandpa to us, et cetera? Any interest or any creativity on that side of the fence?
I think Aspen may, when she's out of college, maybe. They don't have a great thirst for it.
Okay, I gotcha. Sure.
It's like it's nothing that was. I have a daughter that lives in Scotland that she may get into the business side of it.
Okay.
There's but no one's ever had like the thespian bug,
No, I understand.
It was never really a family. I mean, it was just something that I just walked into. It's just
right.
I never took it. My acting coach was Robert Mitchum.
That is awesome, actually. And we'll get into that as a matter of fact. Now, I have a question, because obviously in boxing, you eventually retired from boxing in 1974. You had been undefeated for 16 fights. So my one question in reference to that is if you could just give some introspect in terms of the years that you spent doing that. Two different things. First of all, tell me the one fight that you yourself personally enjoyed the very most. And do you have any regrets now looking back in terms of the physicality and other things about your time in boxing, or do you still cherish that, or maybe even want to become a coach or do something in that realm?
Well, if I would have ever trained the way fighters train today, when I started boxing, we got $10 a round.
Wow.
Okay, so if you fought a 4-round fight, you got $40. If you fought 6 rounds, you got $60.
Oh,
so you had to love the sport to really become a fighter.
Okay.
And there was no real money. Ali brought the money into the sport. There was money if you got up into the championship realm. And being a professional ball player in those days, you couldn't fight amateur because you're already a professional in one sport. They wouldn't let you be amateur in the other. So I never boxed amateur. I only boxed professionally. And I think I'm one of 10 heavyweights in the history of boxing that never boxed amateur and became a world ranked fighter. So and I wished if certain people were alive and were around at the time I was boxing, I probably would have been more diligent. And I told Muhammad Ali this one time. I said, one time I was up at camp with him in Pennsylvania, and he said to me, if I give you a fight, are you really going to try to beat me? And I said, I'm going to tell you something. For the first time in my career, I'll go away to camp. And when we get in the ring, you better bring a gun because you're going to need it. And if I had trained in the way that these kids train today, like in 3-month camps and stuff like that, no one would have. I would have never lost a fight. And I had a lot of ability. I had a lot of God-gifted ability, and I proved that by beating a lot of world-class fighters. But then I lost a lot of foolish decisions and stuff and I took fights on 2 days' notice and 4 days' notice, and I did that because I was doing other things in the street with my father's business, and I just boxing was a day job to me, and it was and I had a gift for it, and I could train 2 days and go fight 10 rounds, and guys today can't do that. You understand?
Sure.
Very few people could ever do that. So when I fought Ken Norton in San Diego, I trained 4 days for the fight. And gave him the worst licking he ever had, but I did that in several fights, So you have to. If I could change something, it would be that I would go back and I would like to, I would have liked to have done the diligence that I should have done in the sport because I was given a God-gifted talent that I abused,
Gotcha.
And I have remorse for that, but. Did I suffer any physical contest because of it? No. I run businesses today. I'm very lucid. I've never, I haven't lost memory thoughts and stuff of that nature. But and then what I did was the skill that I learned. I took and I created a champion. I took one kid, I trained him and managed him, and made him world champion. Frankie Lyles was a super middleweight champion of the world, and that's where Freddie Roach started. I started Freddie Roach with Frankie, and but people say, well, how come you didn't get another fighter and another fighter? Because I was in the movie business and I had other things I wanted to do, and I just I'm one of these kind of people that whatever I put my hand to, I accomplished. I played pro ball, I pro boxed, I was very successful in the film business. And I've written a book, and I keep doing things, and people say, "Well, wow, man, some people don't do that in a lifetime." And I just
exactly.
I've just been,
You've been busy.
I've been very, very, very lucky in my life.
Now, the one thing that I thought about when I looked through your entire boxing career and all these things that I've read and I researched, and I thought, have you ever given consideration to maybe doing a documentary about your time being a boxer? I think that would be intriguing. Just throwing that out there.
People have talked to me about it, and because some of the stories are kind of legendary, of different fights that I had and stuff, and the conditions that I took them under, and different things that I did in my career. And I don't know. I think that some things are better left unsaid, and some things are. I don't know. I've got other films that I want to do that are more important to me. Like we're embarking to do a series on my book, and then films in between as well, because there are going to be 3 more books coming out. So
nice.
That's important to me. And then I've got another. I wrote a script on a famous movie. I did another adaptation of a book called The Informer that was done in 1930s with Victor McLaughlin and John Ford, and won 4 Oscars. And we wrote another adaptation of the book, which is actually better than what Ford did. And we're getting ready to go to Ireland and do that. And
nice.
There's just
That's
some
exciting.
things that you have things in your life that you want to accomplish before you kick it out.
You betcha. Absolutely, without a doubt. I understand. Now, I note that you had studied at Western Kentucky University. Now, I'm gathering that that's the only time that you spent academically, meaning that you didn't go on to pursue acting classes or be in acting, anything. So basically, look at that. Now, that's incredible.
In other words, my acting career, I fought in California in 1968. I beat the number 1 ranked heavyweight in the world, Manuel Ramos. And it started actually right before that, in 1966, when I first started boxing in Boston. Steve McQueen came in town and was doing the Thomas Crown affair, and we took care of him while he was there. We watched over him, made sure he was okay, and he and I became friends. And he said, you got to come down on a set, Jack. I want to put you in the movie. You got to come back to Hollywood, man. We'll hang out. We'll have a great time. You'll love it, And I wasn't ready for that. I said, man, it's not my stick. More power to you and all that stuff. I had just embarked on boxing, and I was doing other things. And then when I knocked out Manuel Ramos, and some people from the East Coast, and they were always trying to look after me, and they wanted to get me off the streets. So they set it up with Eddie Foy III for me to do The Great White Hope with James Earl Jones. Okay. And I went out, and they flew me out to meet the producer, and all I had to do was walk in and sign a document, and it was my picture to do. But I said to the guy, I just knocked out the number 1 ranked heavyweight, and you want me to give up boxing for 6 months, and you're paying me $1,500 a week? I give that away in tips. So what are you giving me? You're giving me nothing. And he said, but this deal's supposed to be done. And I said, you know what? There's a guy in Minnesota. His name is Jim Beattie. He just retired from boxing. He's a big white kid, a good guy. He could use a job. He's got 6 mouths to feed. Give him a call. He said, you're saying no to me? And I said, well, and I remember when I was leaving Fox Studio and I was going down the steps, and James Earl Jones was coming up the steps, and he stopped me and he said, Jack O'Howard. I said, James Earl Jones. And he said, is it true what I just heard about you? I said, depends on what you heard. He said, you just told Hollywood to take the biggest, and it was the biggest film they were doing in Hollywood at the time, and you told them to stick it, where the sun don't shine. And I said, well, if you want to look at it that way, I guess so. He said, I got to shake your hand. I never met anybody who told Hollywood to go to hell. He said, that's unbelievable. And then McQueen called me on the phone. He said, what is wrong with you, man? He said, we were trying to get you to come out here. He said, you should have done the movie. Blah, blah. And then Steve did a film called Towering Inferno, and his name was Captain O'Halloran. And he called me on the phone. He said, how'd you like your name up on the screen and all this other, I said,
my gosh.
I kept saying no. And then when they called me to do Farewell, My Lovely with Mitchum, and I had retired from boxing, and I had a couple construction companies in New Jersey, and they called me up. I looked around where I was at, and I said, you know what? I think it's time. So I did a screen test, and boom, the rest is history. It's Mitchum's fault. I blamed it all on him.
And that was in 1975.
Well.
And oh, sure, definitely. And of course, that's a legendary film to those that have seen it before, obviously. And it's so funny to me personally. I'll just give you this insight because I looked at you in that film in 1975, and then as you progress along, you really never changed the outline of your face. You truly look like you. Literally, as you've gone through the ages, you're very recognizable. That same face, that same posture, that same pose, the whole 9 yards. And to those who have never met him before, of course, obviously, what's it like to be not only buds with, but be working with someone like Robert Mitchum? That has to be a life experience.
It was great. I mean, Robert became like a father to me. He was brilliant. He took me right by the hand, boy, and he just taught me. He taught me the industry. It wasn't so much as I remember. I was working about 3 or 4 weeks, I guess, and I was coming out of the studio one day out of Goldwyn Studios, and the editor on the picture was an Oscar winner. And the guy grabbed me at the gate, and he said, Jack, he said, you worked before, haven't you? And I said, no. I said, it's the first picture I ever done. He said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm cutting this picture, I'm putting it together, and you have a great career ahead of you, young man. He said, you're doing a fabulous job. So I said, thank you. And then the producer, Elliot Kastner, who was a big time producer in Hollywood, grabbed me and he said you lied to me. You've worked before. I said, what are you talking about? You hired me. You got my SAG card. I said, are you people crazy? He said I just came from the dailies, and if what you're saying is true, you got a hell of a career ahead of you. And I said, well, thank you very much. So I went to Mitchum and I said, geez, man, these guys are coming and telling me all this great bullshit. I said, maybe I should go to UCLA and take some of these elocution lessons or some of these acting lessons or something. And he laughed like hell. And he said to me, they'll ruin you or you'll ruin them. He said, stick with me, kid, and you'll fart through silk. Don't worry about a thing.
That is so cool.
And he just, and we became very close. And he taught me a lot of things about the industry. And I remember the first day we ever went to work, and he arranged for him to pick me up and for us to go to work together. And and we're in a car and we're driving down to the first set, and we got down there, and when I went and got ready and we were going to walk on the first time I've ever been on in front of a camera or anything, and he said to me, you read that script, kid? And I said, I read it. I read your part, my part, Charlotte Rampling's part. I said, what part do you want to know? He said, good. Throw it in the trash can and don't ever let me catch you doing what thousands of people in this town do, acting. Right. Just be yourself. Just take yourself and put yourself in this character like you're walking down the street, and we'll have a lot of fun. And that's what I more or less, and I did, and I just listened to what he said to me, and I remember the first shot that we ever shot, and when they finished, they start moving things around and moving the cameras and all, and I looked at him and I said, what the hell's going on? He said, you really don't know. I said, well, what am I asking you for? He said, that's it, kid. He said, that's we're next shot. I said, wait a minute, that's all there is to this shit? He said, yeah. I said, man, I'm a star. I'm a star. And that became the tagline of the film, And he was such a great individual. The very first day that we worked, and he got done, and I had to shoot something else afterwards, and when I got done filming, and I went and changed, I said, "Oh my God, how am I going to get home now? He's probably gone, And I said to the guy, "Where's the carpool? Wherever? How do I get out of here?" So I only go around the corner there, and they're all parked over there. So I go around. There's Mitchum standing against the car, talking to the driver, smoking a cigarette. Mm-hmm. I said, "Whoa, man!" I said, "You're still here?" He said, "Well, I couldn't go home without the star, could I?" That's the kind of person he was, you know. So it was a great experience, and I was very fortunate in my career to have worked with Robert and in the same picture, John Ireland and Charlotte Rampling and some great actors, and Anthony Zerbe, and then when I went on and did other pictures with Jimmy Coburn and Omar Sharif and Marlon Brando. I've been very lucky to have worked with a lot of tremendous actors. Gene Hackman, I did 2 pictures with. So I was fortunate in my career to have worked with a versatility of some great actors.
You betcha, without a doubt whatsoever. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit to a different movie, of course. And this particular one, before we get to Superman, obviously, my children, my 2 younger children, are, of course, 10 and almost 12. So they remember your character in one movie for sure, but, of course, not so much in King Kong, but they do love King Kong, obviously. So before I ask you the child question, which is my son had a question for you that I have to ask you, but first I'll ask the grown-up question. King Kong, you were in the older version, of course, starring Jessica Lange and, of course, Jeff Bridges, etc. Question for you, because Jessica Lange is like on my top 5 people to interview in life. So how lucky are you to be in that realm with Jessica Lange? She's an amazing talent.
Jessie was a great talent. That was her first picture.
Right.
And she was a great. She was a natural. She was like me. She just she was like just fit right in, and she was just a super individual. She was a great lady. She's a dear lady, and a very talented woman.
I bet. I imagine.
A lot of good history with Jessica.
Now, you imagine, of course, when you do a movie like King Kong, you look back in those days when you're doing something, a movie of that size with an animal that size, and special effects, as we all know, have changed so much. So I want to ask you, as being behind the camera, of course, and working on films back in the day versus now, have you noticed, are you more fond of the way things used to be done, or now that we have all this new technological stuff, do you really think it's helping the movie business, or do you think maybe we still need some of that older nostalgia?
I think we broke the molds with Superman. The King Kong film, the monkey was only together once. They put the whole thing together.
Oh my gosh! Really?
Oh yeah, Baker was brilliant. They dressed him up. He was just brilliant. He played. He was the gorilla in a lot of stuff. That the way they shot it and all. But they only had the actual monkey. They had the hand and they had the head and they had different parts of him that they used for different things. But most of it, I think it was at the very end. It was the only time it was all together. Other than that, it was Baker. Baker did all the building climbing and stuff, and they were very cleverly shot it, and they did it well. And poor Jessie one time almost got her brains knocked out because she was sitting in the palm of the hand, and the finger came down and banged her in the head because one of the strings broke and the finger fell and hit her in the head.
Oh my God! How scary is that?
So, a lot of things were a lot cruder in those days, but they were very creative people, so it worked out very well. And then we did Superman. We did a lot of the flying shots. When people say, "Wow, man, you flew around buildings under things," the fight scenes were amazing. Well, they did something they called Zorn's Optic Vision. They shot VistaVision on VistaVision. We had a big 70-foot screen with 3 pole arms that came out, and they had a mold at the end of it. When we laid in the mold, and they dressed us, and it had movements that we could move up, down, sideways, and they shot us in the film.
Huh? Really?
And so we didn't have the wire. We did wires for some sets,
right?
But a lot of it we did in these molds, and it was long and it was tedious, and it was it was very long because it took a long time doing it, but it worked phenomenally. I mean, Superman 2 is an amazing film. It's 1 and 2 together, or they'll never do. They haven't come close to doing what we did. The rest of the Superman films were nowhere near, and now they're getting darker and darker, and it's sad.
I know, very much so.
The technology, I think they overuse CGI today, where they could use it better. But now they're coming out with another technology which is brilliant, because Philip Seymour Hoffman died halfway through the Games film, and you would never know it. They finished it with him, and so they could bring people back and put them on screen. And I'm thinking about getting a license from Warner Brothers to do another Superman movie and bringing Christopher Reeve back.
Oh, that would be
neat. I think
neat.
Superman base would go phenomenally crazy,
Oh, gosh, yeah. Definitely, without a doubt. Now,
but we would take it back to the all-American way. We would do it the way it should be done.
Oh, I agree. My son, he is almost 12 years old, and he's seen all these movies, and so he said, now you must ask him this question. So this is a quote from Kerwin. He said, I want you to ask this man if he realizes how really scary he looked and if he did that on purpose. So apparently you're very frightening to my 12-year-old son, because obviously the height and the whole bit. But it brings up a great point. Did you bring the scary on purpose? Yeah.
Okay. Superman was, what I did in Superman, and you'd be amazed how many comments I've gotten from people, is that, here you had General Zod, that was a vicious general, yeah? And you had Sarah Douglas, who was a man-eater, and vicious, right? So somebody had to play to the children. And here I took this character, Nan, who was of huge strength and brutality, and I played it with a child mannerism, learning how to work his eyes and learning how to do things like a child. And the way I approached Terrence, General Zod, with like taking the light off the top of the cop car and handing it to him and stuff like that, in a child mannerism. So I had so many people who used to come up to me and say, my God, you scared the hell out of me, but I loved your character. Because they related to the child side of him. Right. And
of course.
And we pulled
Definitely.
it off. We pulled it off very cleverly, and it worked out really well. And, when I went to do the film, and Donner and I spoke about the character, and I said, and he said, well, if he doesn't talk and stuff, can you handle it? I said, let me tell you something. I'm dying to do a role like that, because Jackie Gleason did a picture called Gigo, where he played a deaf, dumb mute, and he won an Oscar for it. And it was all facial and gestures, and I said, boy, if I ever get an opportunity to do that, I want to do it. And I had that opportunity with Superman, and it worked extremely well. So, to answer your question, a lot of people come up to me and say the same thing. Oh, my God, he scared the hell out of me, but I loved your character, and that's why, because I did this child mannerism deal.
Okay. And the idea, now I couldn't remember, of course, to those that don't know, although I'd be surprised if everybody didn't know this, of course, your character was a mute character. And was that done on purpose, or was that written in as such? I couldn't quite remember that detail.
The character himself was a scientist and a genius that they supposedly lobotomized, And when we discussed the character, whether or not it should talk or not, I like the idea of not talking. I said, I have no problem with that, and this is what I want to do. And Donner let me go, and I did it, boy. And I just played it like a child, and it just worked. Doing the scene beside the truck where I'm burning a hole for the first time in a piece of wood, with a kid next to me, and I got so excited like a child would, And
of
people
course.
just and they related to it, and it just really worked well. Thank heaven.
Gotcha. No kidding. And I guess I'm asking myself, because actors say this to me all the time, sometimes it's more challenging to have a character where you're not using words. Did you find it was easier for you, and meaning that it kind of forces you to do more character acting, or would you have preferred to have lines?
I wanted to use the facial and body language, and I wanted to. I mean, I did it in two pictures. I did it in Superman, and then I did a picture called Hero and the Terror with Chuck Norris.
Okay.
Where I played this sadistic, non-speaking killer, and I remember I was on the set, and my wife came over from England, and she sat on the set, and when I was talking to her about da-da-da-da-da, and then I walked up a ramp in a garage, and I turned around and came down the ramp in character and scared the shit out of her. She said, I don't know how I'm going to sleep with you anymore. You just turn like night and day. My God, how the hell do you do that? You know, and it was just that's, you know, just something that I was shown how to do. I listened to Mich real seriously. Trust me when I tell you.
Okay, I understand. Now, the other question that I had on the Superman side of things, because oftentimes I'm going to gather that most people will find that you're most recognizable for that role. Some actors like that. Some actors are like, oh my gosh, you know, I did all this other work. So does it ever bother you at all? Like if people kind of get stuck on the Superman thing, is that still okay for you?
No. Yeah, well, it made us iconic. You know,
I agree.
It gives you that iconic. No one will ever forget. I mean, we did Superman 40 years ago, and people, it's like yesterday. You know.
Yes.
And people watch the films, and they like them more than the ones they're doing today. And you know, so you still have the same. It's a great fan base, and it. The Superman made us. Superman movies made all of us iconic individuals. So
you betcha.
You know, do I feel that I've done better acting deals? I you know, every picture, I enjoyed every film I did, or I wouldn't have done them.
Nice.
I turned down so many films, and you know, Farewell My Lovely to me was the best. I loved it. You know, I met some great people. The film worked really well. What I did worked well. I also liked the Baltimore Bullet film. It worked out well. King Kong, I remember one of the producers said, my God, what a waste of talent. You know, you're too good an actor to have done a role like that. But I did it because it was a great crew and cast, and all. We had a lot of fun, you know. And
gotcha.
And I got into Joe Perko, and a lot of people say, wow, you know, and acting is, you know, how do I explain this easy? Robert Mitchum, one day I said to Robert Mitchum, I said, well, what is this business star, man? What is a star, you know? And he looked at me and he laughed and he said, star is a word called presence, Jack. It's what kind of presence you bring to the screen. He said you could do a small little role and be remembered for it. If you have the presence, people recognize who you are. They want to see you again. It's like if you go to a Brando picture and you come out of the picture and say, boy, Marlon was great at this, or Marlon was great at that, and oh, my God, was he ever good at this? And then you could go and see a guy who was a good actor like Bill Holden and come out of the picture and say, boy, he was really, what's his name? He didn't have the same presence as maybe Gregory Peck or a few other. So different actors have that magic presence, you know? And it's unforgettable. So and that's what God gave me a gift again, you know. And Mitchum was very clever in showing me how to bring that to life because he saw it. He saw it before anybody. He knew that it was going to work. You know, I mean, when we did Farewell My Lovely, I mean, I remember doing a scene with him. I don't know. Have you seen Farewell?
I have seen it one time a while back, so forgive me. I haven't recently watched it again. I should have. So
we're doing a scene where we come out of this club, and we're really the first time we really meet each other. And we're walking down the street. It was after people had taken a shot at us, and we're walking down the street, and he says and he asked me a question, you know, about Velma. You know, who is this Velma? And I look at him and I say, you know, cute as lace pants. And when they did that shot, you know, they had the camera on him, and he said, no, turn the camera around. He said, I've been there. He's coming. Shoot him.
Ah, nice.
I've been there. He's going. You know, so and it gave me that confidence because he believed in it. You know, so it was all good. You know, it was good.
Gotcha. Now, the other movie I don't want to forget to talk about, which is, of course, Dragnet is one of my favorites, too. And I just was about to watch that the other night. I love that movie. And I honestly didn't know you were in that until I did the IMDb thing. I'm like, oh, my gosh, how did you end up getting connected on that movie?
Tom Mankiewicz was who worked on Superman. directed the picture, and of course, he reached out to me, and I read the script, and I said, yeah, let's play, and and I liked the character, and we had a lot of fun doing it, working with Danny Aykroyd and Tom Hanks, and it was again, you're talking about great talent and very talented director, and we had a lot of fun doing it. It was just
I bet
it worked out very well.
I imagine it's a good movie.
Oh yeah, well, it's one of those movies that every time you see it, you'll find a line that you missed. Danny did so many one-liners in it. There's so many joke lines and stuff in it that you could watch that movie 50 times in a row and find a new line that you didn't hear before. It's that kind of film. It's a kind of film you can watch over and over again.
I agree with you. I think I've seen it like 2 or 3 times. Without a doubt. Now, interestingly, of course, many times over, and of course, there's only one question I want to ask about this, because you were on a regular basis compared, of course, to Richard Kiel. So my question was, sometimes actors will always get compared to somebody else. So I just was wondering if you had ever had a chance to actually be in a room with him or meet him face to face and say, hey, you know what, everybody thinks I'm you. You did? Okay.
I turned down 5 movies. Richard did them.
Oh, my gosh.
His career. The Jaws part, they came to me to do.
Okay.
And I did it. They came to me to do a picture I'm really sorry I turned down called Silver Streak with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor.
I remember that movie.
And I was doing King Kong at the time, and I had a work span weeks that I was off while they were in New York doing some filming in New York that I wasn't involved in, and they wanted me badly, Paramount, to go up and do Silver Streak. And the director wanted me to do it, and Wilder wanted me to do it, and I should have done it, and I didn't. But so they got Richard Kiel to do it, and then they came to me to do Jaws, and I was doing a picture called March or Die, and I used March or Die as an excuse not to do Jaws, which worked out okay, because from March or Die I went and did Superman.
Nice.
And then I turned down Pale Rider and another 5 pictures that I turned down that Richard did, and it was his career. God bless him. And Richard was, in fact, Richard died from acromegalia.
Right.
Richard had acromegalia.
And he was taller, right? Considerably taller, like in the 7-foot range, right?
He was taller, and his whole facial creature, everything about him was, the giganticism was in him very much so. So Richard,
Gotcha.
And eventually it attacks one organ in your body and kills you. And that's what happens, So if you don't have it taken care of, I was lucky to have it taken care of.
You betcha. Now, I want to flip over on the other side just to let you folks know some of the TV segments he's done. He's been on Perry Mason. He's been on Knight Rider and Murder, She Wrote, which are just classic, iconic shows. And
I was on Perry Mason. And I was on
right. You did all those. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question relative to the TV stuff that you've done before, every actor, of course, has a take on this, so I want you to explain, because a lot of people that listen in are budding actors, actresses, or in the business already. Talk about which did you prefer in terms of, you go on a TV set, sometimes you're standing around for 10, 12 hours versus a film.
I didn't like TV. I didn't do a lot of TV because I didn't like it. I thought it was a cheap shot on actors because it was two camera, and it was, I didn't get into it. I could have, I should have probably done it, and I was offered to do a lot of television, and I turned it down. And and I'll give you a good example. I never read for anything. I was very lucky in that manner because I could act. And I did some very good work, and that people could see it. So they wanted me to do a Bionic Woman, a double series of the Bionic Woman with Lindsay.
Okay.
And and the director called my agent, Meyer Miskin, and Meyer said, he doesn't read for people. And they said, no, that's okay. We just want to meet him. And he said, fine, and set up the appointment. So I went over and sat down, the producer, and I met the producer, and they said, well, the director's coming in, he would like to meet you. And I said, no problem. So we chit-chatted and about the role and stuff like that. And then this director came in, he said, handed me a script. He said, would you read for me? So I read it like I was reading a magazine article, And he said, no. He said, would you read for me? I said, let me ask you a question. Have you seen anything that I've done? He said, oh, yeah. He said, I think you're a brilliant actor. Farewell, My Lovely was such a great movie. And he said, and I said, well, here's my feeling about what you're asking me to do. I'm not a monkey that you hold up a treat and I perform. If you're asking me, can I do this role that you're asking me to do, I'll tell you I'll do it better than anybody in Hollywood. And if my work doesn't speak for itself, then I guess we got nothing better to say. And I get up and walked out.
Okay.
And I said, have a nice day, nice talking to you, nice meeting you, and I left. And they called my agent and they said, my God, he wouldn't read for the director. And he said, I told you he doesn't read for people. And I thought that was the end of it, right? So I get Superman comes. Of course, I was only home for a couple of weeks, and we were going to go to Superman. And television, like they do, they wait to the very last minute before they hire or say yes to people. Yeah. So They called my agent up and they said, okay, we need Jack to come over for makeup and wardrobe. Meyer said, what are you talking about? Well, we really want him to do this part. And he said, well, you should have called him 2 weeks ago. And the guy said, what are you talking about? He said, he's gone. He said, what do you mean he's gone? He said, he's off doing a film. What do you mean he's off doing a film? How long is he going to be? He said, well, knowing the film he's doing, probably a year. And it turned out to be a few years because it was Superman. So, they were gum-smacked. They said, well, can't he come back and do the show? I said, I don't think so. So, so TV was, TV to me was, I don't know, I just didn't, it was like, I always had the feeling I should have done some stage work, And James Earl Jones, James Earl Jones, and I said to Mitch one day, I said, well, man, maybe I ought to do a play or two on Broadway. He said, man, you do the same thing day in and day out? He said, don't you think that would get rather boring, Jack? So he was a ruination to me. Anyway, I never did. I never pursued it. Then James Earl Jones came to me to do Mice and Men or Yale Repertoire. And I was very close to doing that. I'm sorry that I didn't do it, but I had a picture I had to go do. A picture came up, so I had to go do the movie. And, because I would have enjoyed that, and I got my chops into it. I said, "Wow, what a great idea!" Because you only had to do it for like 11 weeks. You know what I mean?
I understand.
It was like the Yale Repertoire thing. So I said, "Wow!" I said that would have been pretty cool. And I often, once in a while, I thought about it, and I'm sorry I didn't do it.
Okay.
And still maybe before I kick out, I may,
that would be kind of neat, I think.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, of course, and why not take advantage of every opportunity? That makes sense. Definitely. Now, I want to talk about something that's very close to you, obviously, your book, Family Legacy, which you have authored, and as I understand, is going to be made into a movie at some given point in time, hopefully sooner than later.
Oh, actually, they're looking to do a series out of it. There's so much information.
Really?
They think that a series would be much better.
Okay,
but,
I gotcha.
Yeah, we're in the works of doing that, yeah.
Is this the first, now Family Legacy will be the first book of, let's say, 3 or 4 books, or is it just going to be the one main book and then different types?
No,
okay, got it.
First,
all right.
No. It's the first of a trilogy, which will wind up probably being in 4 books. Yeah.
Got it. Now, if you will, to tell the listening audience just a little bit about, this is my question, well, there's multiple questions about this, but Family Legacy, was it most important, because it's a fictional piece, of course, meaning the characters that were put in there, but it's also based on your family history.
What we call fractional.
Yeah. Now you have to explain that.
Well, they wouldn't let me do it nonfiction because the government said, we'll never let you'll never get this book published. We won't allow it. Because I was going to tell the truth about a lot of things, which I did tell the truth about a lot of things in the book.
Right.
But I had a little bit of fiction, so it made it fractional, and it worked out pretty well. We got away with, and I mentioned real names, and Meyer and my father and Charlie and Costello, and everybody's mentioned in there. And so what it is that I was groomed to write these books. It's my father and Meyer Lansky and Charlie Luciana, and they come from an era that the country will never see again. They had a power that will never be seen in the country again. Was the country in a better position with them? Absolutely. When I was a boy in Philadelphia, we never locked our front doors. We never had drive-by shootings. It was safer. Neighborhoods were safer. People were safer. it was just a whole different concept of error, okay? And the people involved that we're talking about who wound up biting the bullet for a lot of things because that's what the government did. They got rid of their partner. And, in the early days of the 1900 up to 1960, government, industry, organized crime, and unions were all partners. They all worked with each other. And a lot of the money that was taken out of what you call organized crime, that was made from organized crime, was reinvested back into the country. They invested in General Electric, Westinghouse, Sears and Roebuck. They own most of the They own most of the insurance companies. The waterfront. They created jobs in construction and iron workers and everything else. They created a lot of revenue streams in society and controlled it so that the revenue streams were there. Because if people didn't have money, how could they gamble? You understand?
Right.
It was good business.
Sure.
It was good business, all right? And so they watched over things, and they made sure that people worked, and they made sure that certain things were there. And it was part of the economy of each neighborhood, and they all nurtured their neighborhoods. Even the Jewish area or the Irish area or the Italian area, they all nurtured their neighborhoods. Much different way of living than it is today.
Oh, definitely.
People are afraid to come out of their houses today. When I was a kid, kids played in the street from the time the sun came up till it went down.
You bet. You betcha.
And they were safe.
Anymore.
And they were safe. They could go to parks. They could go anywhere. There was gangsters didn't kill regular people. They killed amongst themselves. They policed themselves. And it was a whole different era. My father was from a different era altogether. And when you see The Godfather was made up of 4 different men. My father was one of them. And the part where Brando, when they approach him to do the drug business, and Brando says, I can't do this because if we touch it, my children will touch it. It'll be the down. My father said that, and my father controlled all the docks in America, and he wouldn't bring that stuff into the docks. He said, "You're not bringing that shit in on my watch. It ain't happening. I didn't sign up for that business." And he died for that stand, and it was the worst mistake they ever made because Albert was the glue to everything, and when they killed him, things fell apart. And they never, until right afterwards, they had the Appalachian thing that happened, and they all got caught running through the woods, and they gave the FBI an excuse, and when Albert made a deal in '39 with Hoover when he handed him Louis Lipton. And that was the FBI's very first criminal capture. And they didn't capture anybody. The guy walked in his car, but it gave them funding, it gave them notoriety, it gave them credibility, and it's just the whole thing is the changes, and I've lived through all this. I've watched all these changes. So I'm writing these books to put things straight, to tell some truth about a lot of things. So Family Legacy, the book, the novel that I've written, the first one goes from my father's death to Kennedy's death, and I tell the truth about the Kennedy assassination.
Now I have to ask, an undertaking like this kind of book, how long did it take you from start to finish to get everything done and then finally release it in 2011? How much of an undertaking was that?
I sat on it for a lot of years because I waited for some people to die, so that they didn't get caught up in any Q&A stuff, but I use people's names, and rightfully so, because everything I've done is all documented. You can go anywhere and you can find it. It's all documented. That's why a lot of it's a lot truer. There's a great a guy wrote a review on Amazon. He's a 90-some-year-old man from New York, and he wrote this great review, and he said, they say this book is fiction, but I'm going to sit here and tell you that it's better than 70% true because I lived that era. And this gentleman has hit on things that people only talked about behind closed doors, and mentioned certain people's names who were stalwarts in our society at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great review that he wrote. And it just showed that a lot of people that read the book, related to it because they lived that era.
Mm-hmm.
They lived it,
Right.
And and it has a lot of truth in it. There was they forced me to do it in that manner, which it's okay. It worked out all right. And it's going to work out a lot better because the way I'm going to do the next books and I think the series is a great idea because there's so much. See, we want to go back all the way to 1850 and come forward and show how the country was definitely opened up. You understand?
Okay.
How it was integrated and how Europe and everything came involved and tell the truth about a lot of things that people had brushed under the carpet, so to speak.
Very intriguing, actually. And how well has it been received? I mean, in terms of not just people, people buy the book and they read it and they say to themselves, okay, I like this. And the media and such, there's such a phenomenon going on about the mob. You know what I mean? Everybody is fascinated by the mafia and things like that.
Everybody's fascinated with it,
Right.
It's a 5-star. Right. It's all 5-star reviewed on Amazon.
Nice. Very
it
nice.
was never really promoted correctly, and what we're about to do very shortly with bringing something out and then revamping something. We're going to promote it entirely differently, and I think it's going to. It's been out since 2011, and it's been in the top 100 Kindle and literature books periodically every year. Every other month it goes up into the top 100. So, and that's without promoting it. That's just with doing Twitter and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So it's gotten anyone who's ever read it just loves it. So it's a great read. It's a page turner. It's really a good read.
Oh, I bet. And I know in the past that you've done book signings before, so I was curious if people want to, are they going to get an opportunity to meet you in person? I mean, will you do more signings, or is that down the line here? You think?
We're going to do a whole deal across the country, the way it should have been done in the first place.
Okay, good deal. That takes care of that. Now, on the flip side, I want to mention to folks, obviously, clearly when you're associated with the films and the work you've done, you've attended the various different places like Wizard World, you've done PopCon LA, you've done WonderCon. I know you're going to Smallville for the Comic-Con. So talk to me a little bit about, the Comic-Con experience. Like, people just revere individuals from that genre. I mean, it's like a whole nother world. Correct me if I'm wrong, but those experiences must be your favorites, just being hand-to-hand, face-to-face.
Some of the shows are brilliant. Yeah, meeting the people is I enjoy it a lot.
I bet.
Some shows more than others. Comic-Con is more like a zoo. There's like 300,000 people jammed in a place. It gets kind of chaotic. Some of the other conventions that I do are a little bit more steady flowing and stuff, and I enjoy interfacing with the fans. I really do. I mean, it's amazing. You'd be amazed how many people. This is true. I remember the first Comic-Con I did, and people come up to me and say, "My God, he actually talks."
Well, obviously, I suppose that's quite the shock, isn't it? Oh my gosh.
He can really speak, and I would get up and say, "Yeah, I can dance too,"
Oh my gosh, how funny. Now, that's what I want to ask you. Of all the people that have met you, is there something in particular that they're surprised about? Not just the fact that you could talk, of course, but what's something about you that most people don't know until they actually meet you?
The fact that I'm as cordial to people as I guess, I don't know. I know a lot of people that are standoffish or have an arrogance about them and stuff, and I don't believe in that. People. I did these films for people to enjoy, and why shouldn't I enjoy the reactions with them? So I interplay with people very well. I kind of like doing that, and it kind of works out pretty well.
Oh, I bet it does. And you don't scare anybody? Because I could picture the little kids, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this man is very tall, and I'm like, none of the kids are afraid of you.
It's amazing. No. It's so trippy how many young kids that have seen the film and then they meet me in person and they just tell me how much they love my character,
Okay.
And they couldn't wait to meet me. They can't wait to meet you. They can't. Which is kind of nuts. It's cool. So what it does is it just fortifies that what I did worked.
That's neat. I like that. And not to mention the fact, of course, now, like you said, you have your grandchild. Now, does she ever go to these events with you, or does she meet crowds with you, or does she really get who Grandpa is? Or like I said, is it just more, that's Grandpa, that's it? He was an actor, he's a boxer, he's a this, he's a that. Okay.
I mean, she has a lot of people from school and stuff like that. You know, everybody knows, you know, who her grandfather is and stuff. And they handle it very well. You know, they just and I, you know, I don't want them caught up on all that stuff. You know, and Aspen, Haley and Aspen both are gorgeous kids. They're both beautiful, beautiful young ladies. And my daughter is. I have 3 daughters, and you know, and their mother's a beautiful woman. So it's but I think Aspen may fall into the film industry.
Oh, sure, you betcha. Now, before I forget to ask about this, there is a script, Ballad of a Simple Man. Now, this is something you put together, yes? Okay.
Yeah, I wrote this when I was doing King Kong, actually.
Oh, wow.
There was a film called The Informer.
Okay.
That Victor McLaughlin and John Ford did in the 30s, and it was off of a book called The Informer, written by Liam O'Flaherty, and it was a very popular book, and the film won 4 Oscars. And Victor was the first character actor to win a leading Oscar for a leading actor.
Okay.
So you know, when I got into the industry, my agent, you know, we sat down and had a chat, and they were talking about different roles and stuff, and I didn't want to get caught up in that, you know, big goofy guy roles business and stuff. I wanted to be able to act and do things. So. And he said to me, well, and I said, I'll get a career like Victor McLaughlin. And he said, well, they don't do movies like that anymore. And I said, well, then I'll make my own. I'll redo The Informer, I said. And the guy looked at me and said, you're not an actor 6 months and already you're going to be a writer and a producer? I said, well, I embarked on it. When I was doing King Kong, I started researching it and stuff. And I went to England. I met Liam O'Flaherty before he died, who wrote the book. And he told me some things about where he got the characters from and everything. So I sat down and I wrote another adaptation. Turned out extremely well. And Mitchum was going to be in it with me, and some other actors were going to do it. When we had a deal with Paramount years ago, and I just didn't like the deal. And Mitchum told me, he said, if you're not happy with it, walk away. And wait until you get a deal that you know you want to hold on to the creativity of a kid, because it's too good of a script. And it's a great script. It really is a good script. It happened to turn out very well. So I think that now that we have the timing, and the timing for it is good, so we're getting ready to go to Ireland and set up and do it. And I'll probably go and see Daniel Day-Lewis and some people. And casting it will be no problem because it's a great script. So, and we're looking forward to it. It's one of those pictures that we're going to keep it in the period of the 20s in Ireland. And it's what I did was broaden it out. The picture that Ford and them did happened in one night, and it was very dark, and they did it at MGM. They did it at RKO, actually, in Hollywood. So what we're doing is I opened it up a couple days, and I'm going to shoot it in show the Wicklow Mountains and shoot it in Ireland, where it belongs to be shot, and put a little bit more openness to it.
Oh, of course, without a doubt. Now, I'm to presume, Long Beach Studio, that's your production company, or by which we're going to see all these films, I take it?
Well, Long Beach was a great deal that we were putting together a few years back with my partner Jay Salmon and I, and it just the world fell apart. We couldn't get the money to do it the way we wanted to do it. We had a great piece of property. We were going to build a great studio there, and it just fell apart. So we worked 6 years trying to do it. And it didn't work out. And then we looked at Culver City Studios, and now I'm looking also at Ardmore Studios in Ireland. I think I'm going to wind up buying. And and we're probably going to wind up doing Culver City back here. And we looked at Sony and a few other things to try to put the industry in a better place. You know.
Nice.
I look at what they do, and I'm a little bit tired of them remaking everything.
Correct.
You know, the problem with the industry is it's being run by MBAs, and they're not no creativity in them. You know, there's a lot of stuff being done that shouldn't be being done, and a lot of stuff that should be being done isn't being done, and they're just the way they're doing stuff that could be done a lot better. and hopefully we'll accomplish a few of those things before we close the door on everything.
I like that. And also, my question, before I forget, 2 questions actually. You once said, be honest with yourself and find some inner peace. And I like that quote quite a bit, actually. So if you would, just elaborate on that a bit, and why do you believe in that ideology? I think that's very paramount and fundamental, and I like it very much.
Well, I've been doing I got turned on to a particular martial art years ago, and it's all inner thinking and inner energy, and it's all breathing and stuff. And I've always been, because of my heritage and the Italian side of me, is that I was a man of my word, and I believe that if you're honest with yourself, you'll be peaceful in yourself.
Right.
You don't have to procrastinate or project something that you're not. Excuse me. And so you just, I believe in this. I do these breathing exercises every day, which gives you a tranquility and centers you.
Okay.
And,
gotcha.
And I'm just a believer in it. People have their own fate in their own hands.
Okay. I like that attitude, actually.
If you look in the mirror at the person in the mirror, and you can't lie to that person, because if you lie to that person, you're lying to the world. But you're lying to yourself.
Correct.
So that causes a lot of turmoil in some people, unfortunately, because they don't know who they really are.
Oh, of course. And I forgot to ask about that, actually. Now, did you just learn martial arts and then practice it, or how did you, the martial arts side of things, when were you active in that, or are you still doing that?
There was a friend of mine in Rhode Island back in the 60s who was an avid martial art guy. And he brought a guy from China. He smuggled him out of China. And he came and he taught us an art, Hop Sing Tai Chi, and it's one of the oldest arts there was. And this man was a direct descendant from Master Po, and we learned this inner sanctum, like tranquility deal, and he was a super guy. God, this guy was a trip. And I've seen this guy do things that were amazing. I mean, I saw somebody take a full swing at him with a samurai sword, and he caught it with 2 fingers.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So he was for real.
Sure.
And I learned a lot about the culture, and I learned a lot about the thinking process, and there was a lot to it. There's a lot of things about how to center yourself and how to, keep yourself as honest with you as you can. It's
right. I like
it's a better
that.
way of life.
Really
that's
neat.
for sure.
Oh, you betcha. Absolutely, without a doubt.
Spirituality isn't about religion. Spirituality is about an individual. It's how much spirituality you have in yourself as to how whole you are.
It's a very, very wise philosophy, actually. I like that. I should probably spend some time getting into it. If I had time to get into it, I would love that. But I like that philosophy, and I think it serves people very well,
I'll tell you what,
actually.
You send me an email address, and I will send you a book to read. It was written many, many, many years ago.
Really?
It's a great read, actually. Yeah. It's a great read.
Oh, I would love that. That would be.
Breathing is a very realistic deal for people centering themselves, and how you breathe is important. If you stick your tongue to the roof of your mouth and breathe deeply through your nose, you breathe with your stomach instead of your chest. So you put more oxygen into your body, and you're pulling more oxygen. If you do that repetitively, you sit over and over and over again, you'll take yourself into a place. And if you sit and you just empty your mind and put something in your mind that never caused you trauma, it could be a color, it could be a place, it could be a thing, and constantly think about that while you're breathing, it'll put you in a very, very nice place. But it takes a period of time to learn how to breathe consistently that way for a period of time. So you can do that.
I imagine.
If you did that for a few hours, it would be like sleeping 8 hours. It just puts your body in such a relaxed state. almost it's very addictive.
Oh, I bet it is. Oh my gosh, that's cool. Wow, yeah, I'll send that to you, and you can advise me as far as that goes.
Yeah,
now I just have two more questions for you. One of which I wanted to mention to you. I saw that you have two projects coming up, Liberty and the Dark Ascension. Both were listed, but they're in pre-production right now, right? So I'm gathering it's going to be a bit before we see something.
They're over in Europe. Both of them.
Oh, okay.
One's here, Liberty's here, and the other's in Europe, and
okay.
And they're good projects. People are just scrounging around, getting their monies and stuff sorted out, and
right,
and putting certain people together, and they're doing that, and and hopefully they'll get it together. But in the meantime, I'm doing my own projects.
That's
but
cool.
I'm there
I like
for
that.
them. I'm there for them if they get it together. Then I've committed to go and help them do it, and because I like the projects. But
sure.
In the meantime, I've got some stuff that I'm going to get done now.
Of course, because you got to keep the ball rolling and moving. Okay, so my very last question for you is from my other child, who's even younger than my littler one. So the first one was age 12, Tristan is age 10, and this one you'll just love because he's like, can you just ask him if he thinks that the action figure they made of him looks like him? So I'm asking, do you think your action figure looks like you?
They're not too bad. They actually look like the character Non with the beard and everything,
I think they do. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job. And, I had some great renditions of people sending me paintings and stuff they've done, both in charcoal and oil. And it's, it's amazing how they've taken the character into their heart. It's, and, yeah, the action figures I thought were pretty good, actually. Not too bad at all.
Look at that. How cool is that? Oh, and I did forget to ask you something. So obviously, of course, I have to throw in the question because, of course, I know that you're dating somebody. So I was just curious how sometimes when people date, they'll date in industry, and most of the time they prefer to date out of industry. So I'm just curious if your lady love is kind of accustomed to all the hoopla and the fanfare because, people notice you. I don't know if you've noticed. You're a little big guy, and people might notice who you are. So how does she take to all that?
I have known this person for, oh, my God, let's see, 40 years. I've known her for over 40 years, and I knew her when she was in college in Philadelphia, actually. So we've had an on and off understanding of each other. We've known her for a long time. And
oh, nice.
And we just came together about 10 years ago, and it's kind of it's almost like your family, and you belong together deal. It's
Aww,
kind of a good
that's
deal.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. Oh, moment there. Okay, we just have a couple business things to do. I'm going to read off all the ways in which people are able to find you on social media otherwise, because I think that it's important to do that. But before I do that, I just want to really quickly say, because I know he is listening, our unification and or interview would not have happened without Mr. Steve Joyner. So I know that you're listening, Steve, so let me just say this much. I'm very blessed, and I would say, not only is he one of the good guys, but he has, I just don't think that he realizes his capabilities to the fullest extent. He's an incredible human being. He's a wonderful friend. And more importantly, Steve, you're sharing your friends with me and your experience with me. And I am forever grateful. And I hope I've done you justice by your friend. And I hope you, Jack, are very happy with my work here. But I just wanted to say a big, big thank you to Steve. Steve, thank you so much, because without you, I wouldn't be talking to Jack or everybody else right now, or all the lovely people you've introduced me to. So thank you. Now, as far as Mr. Jack O'Halloran, he can be found all these places. First of all, for the book side of things, it has a Facebook, which is Family Legacy the Novel, and the website is familylegacythenovel.com. For Jack, just so everybody knows, the last name spelling is O'Halloran, which is A with the little apostrophe, and then Hallaran. And that's how you can find him on Facebook. O-R-A. Oh, yes, that's right.
O-R.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hallaran. Way to go on that one. You bet. He is on IMDb, of course, YouTube, Amazon, Goodreads.com, also BoxRec.com. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm sure you know that, right, that you're on BoxRecs.com, if I could talk, which lists your boxing and all that other good stuff and everything. And you do not have an actual physical website, correct?
Yeah, FamilyLegacyTheNovel.com.
No, I meant
my whole acting history and everything.
It does. Okay, that's what I thought, because I had perused through it, and I thought to myself, I didn't know if you were going to be starting it. Have you given any thought to doing like another secondary website that's got like your upcoming films and other things? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I actually could probably, I can do it on the website that I have, but I'm just I should have a person doing that, updating it and all, and I haven't.
Okay.
I've been a little bit lax on that, but that's all going to be put together. That's all actually going to be put together in the next couple months. There's something already working in the works because of what we're going to do with the books and all, the way we're going to do them now. So all that's going to be revamped.
Okay. All right, good deal. And, of course, I don't want to forget to mention he is also on Twitter, and it's @ and the first two letters are capitalized, which is M, and then it's Anastasia, but the M and A are capitalized, and Nastasia. And you can go ahead and you can follow him on Twitter there. Is there anywhere else where people can find you, or do you have an upcoming event where they can meet you in person, something we should be abreast about?
I'm doing the Superman thing in Kansas, in what they call it, Metropolis. I think in June.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I haven't been there in a while, and it's going to be a lot of fun. You know, I've been down there for a while.
That's absolutely awesome.
A year ago we did it. It was kind of cool, you know.
Oh, that's absolutely awesome. Now, the last thing that I want to say to you before I let you go, and thank you so much for giving me so much of your time today. I mean, it's thrilling for me to speak to icons in the industry who have made a life out of building memories for us. Without you creating cinema, we would not have wonderful memories that we still talk about 20 years later. So I owe you a great debt of thank you so much. Gratitude for myself and for my children for all the work that you've done. If it's okay with you, I would like to ask, I'm going to read your book, and I'd like to do a formal written review of it, and I'd like to print it in a very large capacity, if you don't mind. I'm doing a calendar, and one of the things that I'm doing in that calendar is to put book reviews in it along with film reviews in it, and I would be honored if you'd allow me to consider doing a review of your book and printing it.
Absolutely. No problem.
Oh, yay. I thought I'd have to beg a lot more. Yay, that's wonderful.
No problem.
And certainly I'll stay in touch with you as far as all of that good stuff goes. But I think it's important just to let you know that we appreciate you so much and your presence, and you have a monumental presence that has nothing to do with your size and everything to do with your presence as a person and as an actor and as an author and a human being. So thank you so much from me to you. I can't thank you enough for what you've done for us.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Oh, no
I had
problem.
a lot of fun. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Wonderful. I will, once I get off air, I'll stay in touch this afternoon. I'll send you an email if you want to send me the book info, and we'll kind of take it from that point in time. And have a great weekend, Jack. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
All righty. Okay, folks, wasn't he absolutely fabulous? Again, gentleman's name is Jack O'Halloran. We don't want to forget, now that I screwed up on the name, which I can't believe I did that. Way to go, Cindy. Again, the book is entitled Family Legacy. It is on Facebook, though, as Family Legacy the Novel. Website is familylegacythenovel.com. He can also be found on Goodreads.com, Amazon.com, Boxrec.com, YouTube. He has an IMDb profile, and on Facebook it's listed as Jack, and that's the O with the little, you know what I mean, folks, like O'Grady, O'Hassel, etc. It's O, Halloran, and that's for Facebook. And again, for Twitter, it's the first two letters. It's Anastasia, so it's M and A capitalized, then Nastasia. Wonderful. So that covers absolutely everything. And you heard what I said. I will be going ahead and I will be reading Family Legacy, doing a review of that. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. Again, Jack, thank you so much. It was a delight. And I will pass on your answers to my children. Again, Steve Joyner, thank you. This is one of many interviews I'm doing with people that you know, and without you, I wouldn't have these wonderful people to showcase. You're just a gem. I can't thank you enough. One more thing, don't want to forget to mention, next week's schedule, I will be, from what it looks like, if they keep asking me one more time, I'm going to New York City for a few days next week. However, that would not change my show schedule. 1 o'clock on Tuesday, Central Standard Time, Megan Lindsay is going to be visiting the show. She's an individual that was one of the runner-ups on American Idol. Thank you so much to Melissa for that lead. 16th, we're doing the rescheduled show for Vanessa Weiss. Vanessa Weiss is both a dear friend of mine and also a transgender individual who's going to be going ahead and talking about her story. Now she's trying to raise funds for her transgender surgery. Look for that at 6 o'clock Central Time on Wednesday the 16th. Then on the 17th, actor and director, New York City man, Nick Hunt is going to be on the show, 4 o'clock Central Standard Time, and that's on the 17th. I hope all of you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Enjoy the relatively good weather while we still have it. Thank you so much for listening to our show, and have a great weekend.
What you doing? Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. Bye, singing dog. Bye, goal.
I pronounce you.
Bye, wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Yo, it's me, your crotch. I'm worried. Not about your web history. I'm feeling all funky down here. Next time we shower, use medicated Fungi Cure Wash. It kills jock itch and keeps me feeling shiny. Get Fungi Cure Wash at Walmart and Rite Aid.